I object to my daughter having custody. She disappears for days at a time. She says it's for work, but no one in this family knows what she really does." My mother's voice rang out in the courtroom, each word landing with practiced precision, as if she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. There was no hesitation, no pause of sympathy for her child. I sat at the opposing table, my back straight, my hands still on the cold wood surface. A blue lunchbox was peeking out from the corner of my bag, the edge of a note with a scribbled rocket jutted out. In the front row, Theo sat with his legs crossed, his red shoelaces tapping lightly against each other. I tapped my pencil 3 times on the table. He tightened his laces thrice. No glance or words, but I knew he understood. "I've watched her cycle through jobs one after another," my mother continued. "The apartment is small, the car is old. It's no environment for a child." Derek's attorney gently pushed a stack of photographs toward the judge. He didn't need to say anything else. The pictures spoke for themselves. 1. Derek holding Theo in front of an international school, a gleaming SUV in the background. 2. A birthday party shimmering with candlelight, a scene straight out of a catalog. 3. Derek helping Theo with homework, one hand pouring milk, the other turning a page. I wasn't in any of them. "Your Honor," I said, touching the iPad my son still used, "I'd like to submit an audio recording from this device." I opened the file. "Good night, Mommy. I love you. You're the best astronaut in the world." The entire courtroom fell silent. I read to my son every night. Some nights I'm on assignment, but he still has my voice with him. The opposing counsel shifted in his seat. He was about to speak, but the doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. A man walked in, his footsteps firm, a briefcase tucked securely under his arm. He wore a dark blue suit, the insignia of a federal investigative agency visible on his cuff. "I'd like to introduce my special witness," I said. "The person who can confirm the nature of my work and why I couldn't disclose everything. Not even to my own family." Derek whipped his head around. His lawyer looked down, shuffling through his files. "They wouldn't find this name on the provided witness list." I kept my back straight, my voice calm. "There are truths that don't appear in photographs, but they are crystal clear in official records. I used to think Derek was a rational man. When we first met, he was composed, meticulous, and knew how to make just enough of an impression without being seen as a show-off. But after the wedding, the balance began to shift. Dinners became social media posts. Gifts became check-in tools. Even my son's smile was brightened with a filter before it went on a story. From a husband, Derek became the director of an ideal family. I didn't object to saving memories. However, to Derek, a memory only had value if it was shared publicly and received engagement. When I started being away from home more often for special assignments, handling cases of juvenile exploitation, tracking cybercrime syndicates, Derek grew suspicious. "Where are you going without leaving a schedule? What do you have to hide? My work is classified at the state level." "Do you think I'm an idiot? People are saying you're having an affair." I didn't argue. If someone has already decided to believe the worst, any explanation only helps them play the victim more convincingly. I once found a hotel receipt hidden behind his tax files. When I asked, Derek just smiled. "Meeting a client. It was close to the office. Is there a problem?" I didn't ask again. I didn't need more proof. We signed the divorce papers after a parent-teacher conference. In front of the teacher, Derek held our son's hand, snapping one photo after another. Behind her back, he tossed the custody petition on the table with a note attached. For the child's need for a stable environment. Stable, by Derek's definition, was a 3-story suburban house, a new SUV, private school uniforms, a swimming pool, and picture-perfect holidays, and me. I lived in a small, tidy downtown apartment. recording bedtime stories every night so that even on long assignments, Theo could still hear my voice through his iPad. I would fold each small set of clothes, place them in a cloth backpack, and stick a blue label. Every time you see a blue label, I told him, it means Mommy has already arranged everything so you don't have to worry. I taught him to squeeze my hand 3 times if he felt anxious, and that I would always respond with 3 steady beats. No matter where I was, I never told my mother about my job, because she never asked. Whenever I called, she said, "If you have time, bring your son to visit his grandparents. You disappear for a week, who knows where." That year, I told her I couldn't make it for Thanksgiving because of a special assignment. She hung up before I could finish explaining. After the divorce, Derek maintained a good relationship with my mother. He sent her health supplements, sponsored her alumni association, and organized a painting class for successful homemakers. She smiled, took pictures with him and posted them online with the caption, "A decent man, devoted to his family." I had no pictures to post in return. No parties, no gifts, no stage for me. Just a kitchen table with a half-finished Lego bridge and a note tucked into a lunchbox. If things get tough today, take a deep breath, just like when we fly through the clouds, the notification tone announced. A new story has been sent, and my son and I shared the iPad calendar. And there was one thing I never changed. No matter how demanding my job was, I always returned on the day I promised. No photos, commendations, just a tight hug and 3 hand taps. The second hearing was more intense than I'd expected. Derek walked in with his private attorney and a psychological consultant he had hired. They had printed charts, behavioral analysis images, and a 16-page report on the psychological impact on a child living in an unstable environment. My mother sat beside them, turning the pages of the document as if it were an indictment for a stranger. They called 3 more witnesses, a former neighbor, Theo's old preschool teacher, and a college classmate I hadn't spoken to in over 10 years. They all said vague things, but they were clever and just enough to sow doubt. She often came home very late. The light in her son's room would still be on. I once saw the little boy go outside by himself to get a food delivery. Back in college, she was quite reserved, rarely participated in group activities. I remained silent. I knew the law. I knew the timing. If I reacted, I would become emotional. In the gallery, the seat I had reserved for family was still empty. Only Anna, my closest colleague, sent a text. Wanted to fly over for the hearing, but the boss wouldn't approve the leave. Still watching. Still believe in you, the opposing attorney continued. His voice was monotone, but each sentence was carefully crafted, as if read from an approved script. We would like to submit credit card transaction records to the court. There are multiple charges at hotels and cafes on the days the child's mother claimed to be on work trips. I looked at the paper. Arial font, a timeline complete with numbers. It wasn't wrong, just incomplete. The court should also note, Miss Park refuses to disclose the details of her employment. She could be involved in high-risk activities or even in violation of national security. In such a case, is it truly safe for her to raise a child? I heard the judge let out a soft sigh, not because he believed it, but because the situation was framed as a criminal case. I looked down. The keychain my son had made from clay was in my hand, a lopsided rocket with 2 bottle caps for wheels. I clenched the keychain, said nothing. For the rest of that day, I presented nothing. No rebuttals, no defense. I only asked for 2 more days, and in those 2 days, I activated everything I had kept hidden, my investigative network, the court dockets, and the people who knew me as more than just a mother. I left the courthouse that day, but didn't go straight home. I stopped by a small office behind the Federal Investigation Bureau's headquarters, a place where I used to sit anonymously, drafting search warrants for cases the media never even named. On the table were 3 files. One was Theo's psychological evaluation from an independent expert I had hired myself, not a court-appointed one. The second was a detailed log of my assignments for the past 2 years, redacted and cleared by the security department. And the third was an extraction of security camera data from the area around Derek's house. It included a video clip, a strange woman leading Theo into Derek's SUV on a day I was scheduled to pick him up. I sent everything to the judge's chambers through an internal channel. No prior notice, no threats, just a single attached line. This information may be necessary to ensure fairness in the proceedings. That afternoon, Anna sent me a text. An old acquaintance of mine from law school wants to testify. She said, "It's time to speak up." That evening, I received an email from the state Supreme Court's chief inspector. The subject line contained only 3 words: "I'll be there." I didn't know if he would actually come, but I knew what I needed. Not a cheering crowd, but systematic truth. While the other side was still confident I would remain silent, I had activated every connection I had built over 15 years. My mother texted me at midnight. "If you could just tell the court what you do, things might be different." "You hide too much," I didn't reply, because I knew she wasn't asking to understand. She was asking to force me back into the box she had drawn for me. Derek texted too. "We can renegotiate. I don't want to escalate this. For our son's sake." The offer came at just the right time, right after his side discovered that the next witness I planned to call was Daniel Cho, the regional chief of federal investigations. At that moment, I was just reading a story to CEO through a recording. If you're an astronaut and you get lost, remember, there's always a way back. Just look for the star your mother put in place for you. After listening, my son replied with 3 taps on the edge of his desk. "Light, steady, firm, defendant. Do you have anything to present to the court?" The judge asked, his eyes as neutral as ever. I stood up, slowly opened my bag, took out a sealed envelope, and placed it on my attorney's table. "Before I answer, I would like to request permission to call an additional witness." Derek's lawyer immediately objected. This witness was not on the list provided before the hearing. That's correct. Because this witness is only permitted to reveal his identity under special circumstances. And according to Section 32(b) regarding the protection of professional integrity, the court has the right to review. The judge nodded. "Call the witness." I turned, slightly nodding to the man who had just entered. He wore a black suit, a government insignia glinting on his left cuff. Daniel Cho, chief of the Federal Investigative Unit, needed no introduction. The entire courtroom went silent when his first footstep echoed in the room. "Please, state your professional relationship with the defendant. Miss Park is a senior specialist in the Federal Task Force on Crimes Against Children. She handles extremely sensitive cases, has led investigations into interstate child exploitation rings, and helped dismantle a money laundering organization linked to a juvenile scholarship fund." The sound of rustling paper came from Derek's lawyer. Their side was clearly not prepared for this. She requested her personal information be concealed, even from her family, for her own safety and that of her son. She was not absent without cause. She was working so that other children could come home safely. I turned to the judge and spoke softly. "Your Honor, I chose a simple life not because I am poor. I chose to hide my profession not out of shame. I don't show off pictures of my son, not because I don't love him, but because I know there are things more frightening than misunderstanding. The people who could harm him, simply because his mother brought charges against those they protect." The opposing counsel flipped through his files relentlessly, sweat staining his collar. Derek's face was a mask, but his hands were clenched into fists, veins popping. The judge asked, "Can you provide further evidence?" Daniel placed a thick file before her. Inside was case assignments signed by the Secretary of the Interior, a non-public internal commendation for distinguished service, a list of successfully closed cases, including one involving the financial institution where Derek worked. I didn't look at my ex-husband when that last part was read aloud, but I saw his hand tremble as his lawyer whispered, "Why didn't you tell me she investigated your company?" Derek just shook his head, not in denial, but in shock that the woman he had dismissed was the reason the board had cut a significant sponsorship deal last year. I glanced at Theo. He was drawing something with a colored pencil. He looked up, holding a doodle for me to see. "Mom is a superhero with the scales of justice." I gave a slight nod. No words needed. The judge banged her gavel. "This court will proceed with the new evidence, but it is clear we need to re-evaluate the entire picture that has been painted here. Defendant, do you have a response to the previous allegations that you cannot provide a stable environment, lack sufficient income, and are engaged in dangerous secrecy that puts the child at risk?" I stood up and slowly turned on a mini projector. The room was bathed in a cold light, displaying a detailed breakdown of my son's schedule and my expenses for the past 2 years. I didn't use flowery language. I used proof. This is my timesheet for the last 2 years, signed and verified by the Federal Investigative Unit. Total hours worked, 308.47. Hours dedicated to Theo, 2,012, including reading stories, playing, and attending all medical checkups. I clicked to the next slide. This is my personal financial statement, verified by the IRS. Net income, $158,000 per year. All child-rearing expenses are itemized with receipts. Derek's lawyer grimaced. But that wasn't the fatal blow. I moved to the next slide. A clear image, cut from a security camera. An unidentified woman is picking Theo up from daycare on a Tuesday afternoon. Derek was not present. No legal guardian was present. This is the person the plaintiff hired to pick up my son without notifying me or the school, in violation of Section 9 of the Temporary Guardianship Agreement. The other lawyer shot to his feet. That was just a support staff member, with no contract, no verification. And this person has a prior warning for approaching minors on another elementary school campus, according to public records from the State Board of Education. The courtroom was stunned. I didn't stop. I would also like to enter into the record a transcript from a recorded internal meeting at the plaintiff's company, where he stated that getting custody would make the company's image perfect. Derek jumped up. "Were you spying on me?" "No. This was evidence provided by a former employee who authorized its release because he could not stand the hypocrisy." I turned to my mother. She was staring down at her hands, which were clenched around her purse. And regarding my mother's testimony, I presented a handwritten letter. This is a copy of a letter she sent to the Parent Council last year, thanking me for helping a neighborhood child escape an abusive situation. She knew exactly what kind of work I did. She just didn't believe I could be good at it. I paused. I looked directly at her for the first time since the hearing began. "As my mother, you chose to believe a showy son-in-law over your own daughter, the one you knew never lied to a child." The room was silent. The judge gave a slight nod. "That's enough." Derek's lawyer bowed his head. Derek collapsed into his chair, his back slumped, stripped of the polished image he had so carefully constructed. I stepped back, sat down, and slowly closed my laptop. I didn't need to yell. Didn't need to beg. The truth had already screamed loud enough. Judge Morrison read the final decision. Her voice was not loud, but it was absolute. The court grants the defendant, Miss Park, full custody. Visitations will be supervised for a period of 6 months. Any future petitions regarding custody must be accompanied by evidence of significant changes in behavior, living conditions, and the capacity to care for a minor. I could hear the clerk's fountain pen scratching across the paper. Everything went quiet, as if the trial had ended with a victory and an irreversible exposure. Derek remained still as a statue. His polished leather shoes now had a faint scuff mark, from where no one knew, maybe from his conscience. His lawyer packed his documents quickly, without a word. No more polite handshakes, no more diplomatic smiles. My mother stood up, her hands trembling. She started to walk toward me, but I turned to Theo first. "There's an ice cream truck outside," I whispered. "Want me to take you?" He nodded eagerly, grabbing his orange backpack and the rocket keychain. We walked straight out, leaving my mother standing alone in the middle of the courtroom. She called out softly, "Jenna." I didn't turn back. After the trial, I sent a thank you note to Judge Morrison. Not because she ruled in my favor, but because she upheld principle in a room full of people who only saw the surface. I also apologized to Anna for not letting her know how weak I felt when it seemed like I had lost everything. And Derek? He disappeared from social media for a while. No more pictures of the ideal father posing in front of a new car or eating an organic breakfast. His company's board launched an internal investigation after the trial and cut a significant sponsorship deal, citing his lack of personal integrity. A month later, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. "I was wrong, but maybe you were also wrong for not giving me a chance to understand you. I hope one day I can see my grandson again. If you'll allow it." I didn't write back, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't ready to be the one explaining anymore. I needed time. 2 months later, Theo started an art class. The first picture he showed me was of a chair. On it rested the scales of justice, supported from below by 2 small embracing arms. "Who did you draw?" I asked. "A lot of people think it's a superhero," he replied. "But I think it's you." I said nothing. I just held him close and whispered, "Justice isn't about proving who is wrong. It's about protecting who is right, even when no one believes them. If you have ever been doubted, betrayed, or defined by what others don't understand, remember this. You don't need to prove your worth every day. You just need to hold on to your truth and wait for the right moment. Justice doesn't always arrive with applause, but when it does, it is silent, sharp, and undeniable.